Well, there it is. Day 7, the last of the magic mind, day 7. I have to say that this is really something else. Normally I have 3 or 4 cups of coffee in the morning. Since I've been doing this, I just have 1 cup of coffee to kick me off. But then I have this, and what the interesting thing I find about it is that it gives me a boost, but the boost doesn't go away as coffee does. You don't have to take another cup of coffee in 3 or 4 hours. I'm a high energy person and I'm a high producer. I run three companies at once here, and I work 16 hours a day. So I naturally have energy, but like anything, we need a boost, and this is an incredible boost. What I like about it is it goes all day. It picks up in the afternoon, so it seems, and I can just carry on with it. It's a wonderful thing. So I look forward to using it for the rest of my life. Really, it's a pickup without the letdown. That's what I like about it. Well, there's my old mate, Will Carter, or my young mate, I should say. How are you, Will?
I'm doing great, Colin.
I'm glad to see you getting in front of the camera for a change.
Oh man,
now I can slap you around like you slapped me around.
It's an honor and a privilege to share our stage today.
Yeah, well, we got a lot to talk about. Well, the country, in my view, has never been this divided. Perhaps not since the Vietnam War, and maybe not since the Revolution. We're at I wouldn't say at a pivotal point, because America is such a big country and such a powerful country, and the individuals in it, the people in it, are themselves so driven that nothing can overcome this. But it still is a challenge. We have a division here that is really quite shocking when you look at it.
Yeah, Colin, I talked to my father yesterday, and he comes from a very centralist viewpoint, and I wanted to get his opinion on this stuff and let me know what your thoughts are once I get my point across. So people in the center don't have anybody that they feel resonates with them right now. So they feel very misrepresented because they're presented with the lesser of two evils, or they're presented with two options that they don't feel represents them. So they're either going to vote for a lesser of two evils. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So that's where they're at. And I feel like they think, why are we in this position where we have to vote for somebody that may not be the best choice, but it's better than the other choice? And the biggest takeaway from it is, if you look at it from a bigger picture, do you want to vote for somebody that's more inclusive or somebody that's less inclusive? Somebody that's more leaning towards a dictatorship or somebody that's leaning towards preservation of democracy? That's the way that they see it.
Good point to make there, but we have to question whether or not, we're talking about Trump, of course, whether or not Trump wants to have a dictatorship. He did say once, he says, I'll be a dictator on day one. But does that mean at the end of day one he's no longer a dictator? And anyhow, I don't think it. I think he just said he's going to, if he's elected to that office, then he's going to kick ass, get rid of everybody, be a dictator for, as he said on day one, get rid of the people he doesn't want there, which will probably be the people who crossed him one way or the other. He's pretty vindictive, and that's one of the qualities about him that I don't like. However, if we were in a war with some other country who was threatening our life, I would like him to be there. I'd like him to be arrogant and badass.
Because that shows like a strong qualities of a strong leader that are good in situations where we're going to war.
That's what I feel, and that's why I feel that I lean towards him because of that. I lean away from him because he's so irrational and he just shoots his mouth off.
Do you think it's a charade, or do you think that's actually who he is? Or is he presenting as somebody that shoots his mouth off? Or do you think it's just kind of a character that he's developed over time? Then that's not the real him. Because if you talk to, I like to play devil's advocate, okay?
Correct.
So when you talk to people that are more right leaning or people that support Trump, it's almost like they will defend the good qualities about him and overlook all of these other qualities, like we were talking about before, because other countries may fear him in the sense that, you know, he's not going to play around and not, you know, like pull any triggers when it comes down to the wire.
Correct. Well, it's what sort of leader you want as you're going into troubling waters here, or troubled waters. Do you want a leader who's forever wanting to negotiate, or do you want a leader that the enemy is terrified of? You have to ask yourself that question. I'd rather go into battle with a leader that the enemy is terrified of than go into a battle with a leader who's all for negotiation. Well, the enemy's going to think, oh, this is good, we'll talk him around in circles.
Maybe we have a chance.
Yes, maybe we have a chance. And so, but there are qualities about Trump that I don't like. I just wish he wouldn't shoot his mouth off so much, and I just wish he'd think before he talks. And there are several things, but these are almost personal characteristics. And you ask, well, has he developed those, or where did they come from? These negative traits that he has. I think we're all born with the template. I'm a thorough believer in that. We're born how we are, and as we go through life, we might become a bit of this and a bit of that, but we're just dusting off the template or expanding little bits of the template here and there. We are born who we are, and that's my feeling. It's genetics, and he's. Will he become will he get the White House? I'm not sure, because his supporters have rallied around him, sure, and they are in great numbers. He's, according to all the polls, he's ahead of Biden no matter which way you look at it. But that's today. What's it going to be like when people go into the booth to cast their vote? That's going to be the real question. I think I'm in the middle of these. I'm with those people that you speak about in the centre. Okay. That's me. I'm there. I voted for Trump in the last election. Asked me today if I'll vote for him. I'm not sure. I'm positively not sure. I'm in the middle. So I'm going to have to be persuaded whichever way I go. Biden's done wonderful work, and he's a compassionate, sensible person, which is very attractive. But do I want him pulling a Churchill and going over and talking to Hitler? I don't know. It didn't do Britain any good when Churchill did that. Then when England was appeasing Hitler, trying to negotiate with him, or Chamberlain was, who was a president who was the leader of England at that time, and it didn't work for Hitler. He had to be stopped. He had to be stopped when he was invading Poland and had his eye on the rest of the world, much like Putin does today. Putin's not satisfied with Ukraine. That's just the first step as far as he's concerned. So he has to be stopped somewhere. Who's stopping him? It'll only be us, only be America. Who can stop him?
I can see your point there. I want to kind of ask you about some things relating to the economy too, as it plays into politics. So what are your thoughts on where we're at economically? Because, you know, these people in the middle who don't feel like they are totally aligned with the left and not totally aligned with the right, I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of people here, want to see a more fiscally responsible government, a government that can pull back and say, okay, look, we have trillions of dollars in debt in this country. How are we going to make this back? And it's not by foreign aid and sending billions of dollars to other countries to help them, although that is a very nice and humanitarian gesture. But is that sustainable for our country? Where can we allocate those funds to help us? Because right now we are actually struggling.
Well, there's a perception, and you've hit the nail on the head with that perception that we give out vast sums of money to other countries. Well, we do, but from my observation, there are strings attached to that. We go into Africa and we give Zambia or Botswana or whatever country, and we give them $1 billion, but we're also there sinking an oil well. We are also getting back access to their resources. So I don't think it's so altruistic, really. I just don't think that there's.
You think it's more strategic?
Yes, it's a very good ploy. You give somebody something, and you got three people in a room, and somebody gives something to one person, and that's a good gesture, and he's very thankful about that. But then that person is united basically with the person who gave it to him. So they're looking at the person who is now the enemy because he didn't get anything, and of course he's not very happy about that. But I think countries are the same way. We buy loyalty. America has this this wonderful. I feel it's a wonderful perception that everything can be bought. Everything has a price. Well, basically, everything does have a price. Unfortunately, I think you can buy loyalty. Countries do it all the time. People do it all the time, and you just buy it, and that's what America does. Doesn't look good, and the liberals will parade around and say, "Look what we did for Haiti. We gave them $1 billion." Well, what did that $1 billion really do? It strengthened the dictators that would come, the Cavaliers of the time, and they're all pumped up by Americans, and that's
Yep.
why we got Haiti in a hell of a mess today.
As somebody that's actually been to Haiti back in 2011 after their massive earthquake, I have seen that country fall apart even more so after we've sent aid. And it seems like that $1 billion, yes, it kept them alive, but we don't really know where and how those resources are being allocated, if they're being allocated correctly, or if it's just falling into the hands of corrupt government and these gang lords that are kind of like raiding and pillaging and breaking people out of prison now, and forming these gangs to get somebody that's in power right now out of government.
Well, that's and where do they get the arms from? They don't manufacture arms. They came from America.
For sure.
We gave them all those arms when we were propping up the Castro regime, and so those arms are still there, so they're accessible. You just got to go and take them, and that's what the gangs are doing. But when you look at the history of the world, every country has had a revolution, including America, and every country today was taken from somebody else. We took America from the Indians.
Yep.
Australia took their country from the Aboriginals. Europe took their countries from the very first runs of civilization, the Neanderthals. They came out of the cave with their clubs or whatever the hell they had, and we took the clubs off them, or somebody took the clubs off them, beat them to death, and they became the new rulers. And unfortunately, the world is a violent place, and it'll continue to be violent. And bottom line is, sad to say, but if we were not killing each other, there wouldn't be any standing room left. It's like trees in a forest. The forest has to die, but new trees come up, and that seems to be what the pattern is with human mankind. That we vanish, but no more come. We breed. and I think that's been the case since the very beginning of our humanity, which is now stretched over 5 million years, which is a scratch on the surface when you consider how old our universe is. It's billions of years. What is 5 million into 100 billion? It's 0.00000 something, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
don't blink.
yeah, it's a blink. So our while our impact is considerable to our tiny minds and our small collective thought, it's of no consequence to the universe. We will never create power to destroy the universe. We're incapable of that.
Colin, you said a word earlier that really struck a chord with me, revolution. And I'm not in the spirit of like catastrophizing what's happening because we don't really know what's going to happen. But I'd like your thoughts on what could happen in this country. Do you think we're headed towards a revolution or like a civil war, or what do you think could happen with our two divided sides, as divided as they are, and then the people in the middle not really knowing where they stand?
Well,
politically,
the people in the middle are the prize to be got, and both sides are trying to get that prize. I think that civil war comes when there's no leader to stop it. There's no leader for the left and the right to coalesce behind, and we don't have a leader. So that's why I feel that we are heading for a revolution. It won't be like the last revolution, but it'll certainly be an economic revolution. The the distance between the haves and the have-nots is increasing.
for sure.
It's not shrinking. The people who don't have money have less money than they did before. The people who have more money than they had before. So the wealth is being taken from the people who can't muster the forces they need to hold their wealth, and even our government has a whole army of people to enforce tax laws. Well, that's almost draconian, isn't it? That's how it was in England 400 years ago, 300 years ago, when collectors of the crown just walked around and bashed on doors and took everything they wanted. Now, they don't bash on doors anymore, so to speak, but they'll certainly come and take your car, come and take your house, come and take whatever they can, take your business, and just defrock you in one way or the other. They have the power to do that because they say, well, we didn't pay our share. But that's kind of an opinion, isn't it? What is my share? And if you work hard for all of your life to create something, and then you end up not owning it, but the government owns it, that doesn't seem fair either. It doesn't seem to me to be democratic either. I think the word democracy is applied very loosely to modern America.
I would agree.
It's a democracy. It's a money democracy. If you have money, you can wave your arms around and be a Democrat.
The system works in your favor.
Yeah, if you have money. If you don't have money, the system doesn't work in your favor. So, and how do you get money? Well, you obviously work hard for it, and people do work hard for it. But I kind of resent the fact that the people the people who take the money ultimately don't do any work for it. What does the federal government do? What did they create? They didn't create items to sell to somebody. They didn't create any of that. They just take from people who did create something, and that's I think where the revolution is going to come from. People are going to say, "Wait a minute, I don't like what's happening." And we've had the last revolutions. When you think about it, they were economic too. it was to do with the slave trade and all of that. Well, the slaves didn't have any money, did they? They just worked and worked and worked and dropped dead. Well, guess what modern people do in America today? They work and work and work and drop dead. And corporations reap their benefits for their lifelong servitude. And so it's not too different. It's just got a nice veneer on it, you know. And we masquerade as a free country. Well, guess what? You're free to a certain extent. And another thing too is we're losing our freedoms little by little by little. And it's like a tree going. A tree comes into as winter falls. One leaf falls off, then 2 leaves, and then 100 leaves, then 1,000 leaves, and by the end of the winter, there's no leaves left at all.
I mean, just look at what happened during COVID. How many freedoms were stripped right out from under us, or maybe privileges or rights, you know?
And guess what? They didn't come back, all of them.
Not all of them.
No. I remember, COVID was only yesterday, but this thing about COVID was being pressed on everybody as the new big disease and all of that. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people did die of COVID, but people die of the flu all the time.
All the time.
So what is the difference between deaths from the flu and deaths from COVID? I think that COVID became I hate to use this, but it's almost like the feds came up with a master scheme to see if they could control the people.
It's called the Hegelian dialectic. Have you heard of that?
That's a good one.
Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of that
The
one.
Hegelian dialectic is basically a model to enforce a control mechanism. So they introduce a problem, or maybe a problem is introduced, whatever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And then a reaction happens, the people react, people freak out, there's fear, and then the solution is presented. Oh, we can present you with the solution. We have the solution. Just trust us, do what we say. You know, you're under lock and control while we have the solution. And then the only way to go forward is to be in the camp that leans towards that solution.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing, but that is what happened.
That's what happened.
That's precisely.
Yeah.
And you know, they now say that COVID was a bad flu. Well, how many bad flus has civilization had? About one every year since the beginning of time.
There's always something happening.
There's war or there's something else, but it sure was a measure. It sure illustrated the power of our central government. And when you think about it, one of the definitions of communism is a central power that's an ism, and it can control all of the people. So if that didn't look like communism, I don't know what does. It was the federal government giving out an order that this is how it's going to go. You will all wear masks, which they even admitted, Fauci even admitted after the time that the masks didn't do anything.
That part.
Yes.
That part. And then you'd see politicians and people in quote unquote power out at restaurants not wearing masks.
Yeah.
And then people would take pictures of them and put it on social media, and then they would get scrutinized and ridiculed, and all this stuff would happen in backlash towards that. Because it's like, why are you not following the same rules that you're telling everybody to do, to live by?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, somebody asked Fauci why he wasn't wearing a mask, and he says because they don't work.
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
this guy.
Meanwhile, he had told everybody that they had to have masks on, and you know, maybe I don't know. I don't see. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know about communicable diseases to any extent at all. But it just didn't make any sense to me that you cover your mouth.
That's
and,
it.
And that's it. You know, we're in oral contact with each other all the time, one way or the other. Eating utensils, you grab a handrail and you wipe your mouth for something, and so that was a hand on that handrail before you did that, and et cetera, et cetera. We have we're in we're in saliva contact with each other all the time, one way or the other. It might be minute, it maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. But that's the thing, and so are all animals. I keep horses and dogs and all that, and horses are mouthing each other and scratching each other and biting each other and doing all sorts of things, and they're exchanging saliva all the
Yeah.
time, and so do all animals. They all
Right.
do that.
Well, yeah, and what you're speaking to right now is just a fact of nature and a fact of it's empathy too. Like being able to touch somebody and hug somebody and engage with somebody and be close with somebody. They tried to take that away from us.
And they took away something that was more dire to all of us and more needy to all of us, and that is companionship
Exactly.
with each other. We are tribal. We've always been tribal. The worst thing you can do to a human being is cut off contact
Exactly.
from other human beings. That's why
Exactly.
solitary confinement is without doubt the worst punishment.
Yeah.
And they never see another person, they never touch another person, they don't talk to another person. Well, imagine that. You can't even imagine the pain that would cause, and that's a very severe thing. So we have to be more engaged, and the reality is, sure, there are germs floating around, but if you spread them all around, guess what? They'll all go away, because guess what? They always have. Yeah, you'll lose a few, but you'll lose a few. Well, when they circumnavigated the world, when Captain Cook started sailing the Endeavour around the world, they said, "Well, you're never going to make it," and he says, "Well, I will," and he did. And his attitude was, well, he lost a few, didn't he? But he got around the world. And there's always a cost, and the cost to any endeavour that people do is human life. We survived the Nazis, but it cost us a lot of men on our side. Cost them a lot of men on their side. So it's human life. Unfortunately, is pitted against human life constantly and forever, and that's the way it's going to be.
Do you believe in reincarnation, or where do you believe we go after death?
Oh, we have a spirit. Yes. If what you're talking about reincarnation is that our spirit never dies, that's what I believe in. Do we come back as somebody else? Don't know about that, but I do know that our spirit never dies. I'm living in a house here that this was the site where the Chumash Indians had their rituals, right where we are sitting right now. We have a house here, but there are still remnants of the Chumashes, and I feel their spirit all the time. You live in that room over there. Well, Vicky, my sister-in-law, used to live there, and she had a TV in there that would turn itself on and off. Well, it didn't turn itself on and off, did it? Somebody turned it on and off, but there was nobody in the room. And after a while, she just began to accept it. Now, the spirit in that room was simply playing with her.
That's right.
It wasn't scaring her. And I don't know if you've noticed the spirit there, but
No, I haven't.
no, well, but he's not interested in engaging you because
Maybe not.
because you're no fun to play with.
Maybe he's like, this guy's crazy enough. I don't need to mess with him.
That could be it. So, yes, I believe our spirit lives on and on, and it's because it makes no sense that we die like that. Do we come back as another person? I'm not sure. Maybe come back as a tree or something else. But the spirit lives on and on. The reason I believe that is because I've experienced stuff like that. When I came to America by sailing a 34-foot wooden boat from Africa, and I met spirits all the time on that boat. At night time, 2 a.m, I'd hear something, look up, and there'd be a figure on the bow of the boat, and I'd sneak up thinking it was somebody else on the boat. There was four of us. Somebody else was playing tricks
I
on me.
remember that story.
Yeah, but there was nobody. There was nobody there. But I saw it with my own eyes. Saw it. Now that spirit was a pirate from someplace. That was in the doldrums where
The doldrums.
thousands of ships over the years had sunk because they were driven only by the wind with their sails, and there was no wind out there, so the boats just sunk. And terrible death to those aboard. They ran out of food and they started eating each other, and then there'd be one person left, and that was that. So that's how it went. But
It's so fascinating.
yeah,
You have led such a fascinating life. And that's why I love working with you and hearing your stories, because you just don't hear stories like yours anymore. And that's what this podcast aims to do, right? Is share stories that are so not even, people these days can't even fathom how one could live a life like that. Like when I'm at the grocery store, I was at the grocery store today, and a woman at my checkout asked me what I'm doing my podcast about today. And I started telling her all about you and your stories. And I was like, you won't believe the type of stories that comes out of this guy's mouth and what he's lived. And just like trying to imagine some of that happening is to the everyday person today. It's like, that just doesn't happen.
well, I think a lot of amazing things happen to people. They don't. It's just that they don't celebrate them, or they don't share them. And I'm at fault. I'm a great sharer. I love to share every experience I can ever have.
Only the best right here. The best storyteller probably in the whole world. And horse rider, horseman.
Yeah, well, the horse for me has been very, very important, and because if it wasn't for the horse, I wouldn't be speaking.
That's right.
Because that's how I learned to speak. When I was a kid, I couldn't talk anymore, and that's why I ended up in the bush anyhow, where it was a great place to be, covered in mud and eating wonderful fish and spearing wallabies and cooking them in the I can light a fire with a stick and I can do all that, and I cover myself in mud, and I was very, very, very happy. And it was, I'm just an animal. And I could walk up to animals and say, you're a nice looking wallaby, but, you're so nice and you're standing there and you're so trusting. But I'm sorry, mate, I got to spear you because I'm going to eat you. So,
And the vegans are rolling over right now. Sorry, vegans.
it's either I eat you or I die.
That's a circle of life, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is, in nature you don't see animals. I mean, you do see some animals. I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but you don't see many animals like only eating one thing for their whole lives. They eat a multitude of things, and one of those things is other animals that are smaller than
Correct. They just pick on something smaller that they can handle, and every creature on the planet does that. Birds eat worms, and so that's it. And big birds eat little birds. That's it. And big animals eat little animals. That's it. And they'll eat us if they can. Tigers, you get in the bush with a bunch of tigers, you think you're going to come out of there alive? I don't think so, because they know they can eat you.
I understand the conscious argument. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Because we're sentient. We're conscious of the fact that we can create more suffering than we should, maybe. But I don't know if that's a completely logical argument, because we've had somebody on your show, your friend John, who's a holistic health practitioner, who said over time the health patterns that go along with people who have been plant-based for long periods of time, they tend to start degenerating after a long period of time being only plant-based. And you start to consider, okay, well, what's actually best for my health, for my well-being? And you have to start thinking in those terms if you want to consider longevity.
Well, that's correct. And John, my dear friend, is correct in all of that. You have to eat meat. Now, you have to eat flesh, because that's what we've always done for 5 million years. Yes, you can survive without it. You can just eat leaves, grass, anything green. Yeah, fine, you can survive with that. but every vegetarian I've met, they look like crap, and they don't have any energy. I have lots of energy, and if I want to do something that requires energy, I'll eat a bunch of steak and just eat meat. I was a boxer for a short time as a young man, and I noticed that every time I was going to go into a boxing match, which I enjoyed doing, I didn't enjoy getting hit, but I sure did enjoy hitting somebody else. I like that. So I'd eat a whole big piece of steak and go, oh, yeah, now I'm a savage. And get in the ring and go, boom, take that. Oh, that felt good, didn't it? But you can't go in and, but I'm driven by, I've eaten an animal and I'm digesting its flesh. And that's the story of our life. That's how we survived.
Yeah.
We didn't survive by eating mushrooms. But mushrooms ain't bad either. But there you go. Put them on a steak and mushrooms. Now we're talking.
There you go. There you go. So to speak to a sense of optimism for where we're at politically, economically, on a human level, what can you share with the audience that would leave them with a sense of optimism, not a sense of, oh, this could be, catastrophic?
Well, just look at the numbers. I read the Wall Street Journal every day, so I know the trends of everything, of the trends of the economy, and the economy is our engine. That's what drives our country. That's what gives us 3 cars in every garage and blenders and stuff to put in the blender and all of that stuff. We have to remember one thing: America is the wealthiest country in the world. It's the wealthiest country human beings have ever seen in the entire life of human beings. There's been there's been tiny populations that have enjoyed great wealth, like the Roman Empire, etc., or the Egyptians, but they were a fraction of the populace. In America, everybody has money. Everybody has some kind of money. Some people have a lot of money. Some people have little money. But there's very few people starving in this country. And if they are, they don't have the energy to walk down to the corner and ask the grocer, "You tossing out that bread today? Leave it for me and I'll pick it up in the afternoon." You can get fed very easily here. I got a 200-pound tortoise here. I haven't brought any food for that tortoise ever. I just go to the supermarket and say, "Hey, you guys, you got a bunch of vegetables you're throwing out here today?" They say, "Yeah, look over there." And there'd be a stack of boxes in the corner, 6 feet high. I can just get a bunch of those, bring it back and give it to Fluffy, and I'll go through it and pick out everything that's okay for me. I don't buy any vegetables either, because they were all originally directed at Fluffy, my 200-pound tortoise. I just grab what's there, and there's more than enough for me and for Fluffy. So I'm not saying you've got to go through garbage cans, but the reality is Americans throw out more food than most countries, other civilized countries, consume. We throw out that amount of food.
It's tragic.
And it is very tragic, and the problem is, and this is one of my real pet peeves, is that Americans are trained to be wasteful.
That's right.
I go to dinner with people, and it's sort of with great pride that they send back half a steak.
Can't believe it.
Look, I'm so full up, I don't need that. And there's a half a steak going. Well, that steak costs $50, so it's a $30 steak, $30 worth of meat going back to the kitchen, which will be put in a trash bin, I think, and then tossed out. Well, that's wasteful, and that's a big criticism I have of the way Americans are actually trained to be wasteful.
That's right.
Being wasteful seems to be a wonderful thing. I walk around in jeans with holes in them, and I drive a car that's full of dents. Somebody said to me once, you live in a great house and you make a lot of money. Why you drive this piece of crap? And I said, I like it. First of all, nobody's going to steal it.
That's right.
It's full of dents. And he says, well, what do you feel about the dents? And I happened to have just bought a hammer from the Do It Centre, and I got this hammer in my hand, and I banged the side of it and put another dent in it. And said, did you notice something about that car when I hit it? And he says, yeah, well, it's got a dent in it. I said, but did you hear the car squeal? No, car didn't give a damn, did it? It's not a person. It's only a thing. It doesn't have a heart nor a soul. So I'll just drive it into the ground, and I don't ever have to lock it. Leave the keys in it. It's insured. If somebody steals it, I'll get enough money to buy a new car, which I wouldn't do. I'd buy a used car.
You know, it's funny, Colin. And I think what people are seeing as hard times can actually be turned on its head, right? Because hard times make stronger people.
Correct. How do you build muscle? You get a weight and you push your arm against that weight. And guess what happens? Your biceps get big and muscle gets built. But you don't get it without pain, and you don't get it without stressing. And that's what I feel about the economy. You asked the early question, why am I so positive about the American economy? Because we are flexing our muscles. We are getting stronger. People are actually having a little bit of denial. Wow, isn't that nice? Now they'll think about something before they toss it out. They'll think about that half steak before they throw it out. That's
right.
a good thing. That's a very, very positive thought.
Yeah, that's a big impact right there.
Yeah, and if we can stop wasting, stop being so cavalier about throwing stuff away, and rather look at it like it's a bad thing to do. When I was a kid growing up in the bush, if you left something on your plate, and I was one of 7 kids, and I'm living in the bush, and it's pretty rugged out there, and if you left something on a plate, Mother would say, is there something wrong with that? Say, no, well, I'm full up. Oh, okay. You'll have that for breakfast in the morning. I'll put an egg with it.
There you go.
So if you left your steak there from the night before, you got it tomorrow morning with an egg on top of it. And if you left some steak there, well, guess what? Mother would cut it off that bone finally and make a sandwich for you. You would eat that steak. If it took you 3 meals, you'd get through with that hunk of beef. And we reared beef. I killed the cattle. It was my job to shoot the cattle and strap them up to a tree and cut their hide, pull their hide off, and give the guts to the hogs and cut off the meat. And that was my job. So I know about beef, and it's it's a wonderful thing. It's full of power. Beef is full of power. They say, well, elephants don't eat meat, and look how big and powerful they are. Yeah, well, they're a big mass. They're a mass. That's what they are. They're a massive creature. So they get power just by leaning on something. The power I respect is a human being who's, say, 140 pounds and can lift his own weight. That's real power. Can an elephant lift its own weight? No chance. Can a gorilla lift its own weight? Perhaps, maybe, for a minute or two, but the gorilla is very close aligned to our structure, although I don't believe we have any gorilla in us, although I've met some people who I'm a bit challenged with that thought too.
Even in the bedroom?
Well, I think, talking about the bedroom, I think the sex is I'm just a horn dog. I just love sex. And, I'm having to control myself now at 82 and not just jump on anything that's out there. I used to feel myself as a bull approaching the paddock and looking out over the fence and seeing all these heifers out there, and he's with a young bull, and the young bull says, we should get over that fence and jump on one of those heifers. What do you think of that? And the old bull looks at him, and this is me. The old bull looks at him and says, no, we'll walk over and jump on them all.
There's your sense of hedonism right there.
Yeah. Well, call it what you like. But
Well-
I think we were meant, when we were created, we were meant to go forth and multiply. So I'm following my instincts here. I'm going forth and hopefully not multiplying, but I'm certainly going through the actions of multiplying as much as I can.
That's interesting.
So I had a vasectomy when I was 22, so I wouldn't multiply, but I could still perform. And that was the greatest thing I ever did. Wow, a vasectomy, get one. Oh. And it made me much more virile because it took the lid off risk of propagating.
There you go.
You know, I want the fun, but I don't want the package too.
That's right. I don't want the repercussions.
No repercussions that last forever.
But you know, sex is fun. Sex is natural, and you know, you can probably pull any sorry chap aside that you see out there in the world and say, "Hey, man, how's your sex life?"
Yeah.
They'll probably say, "I'm not getting any right now."
Yeah, well, if you imagine this, if somebody says, "Well, here's an island over here. I own the world. I'm going to give you that island." You go, "Wow, my own island. Wow. What's more, I'm going to build you a castle on it. It's a beautiful big castle on the island. Wow, that's hot. That's good. And what's more, I'm going to give you a pot of gold, a big pot of gold. It's all yours. Your own island with a castle and a pot of gold." You go, "Wow. Would that make you happy?"
He's gonna tell me that there's a castle named Colin, Castle Dangard out there somewhere.
And this creator says, "Yeah, it's all yours." Oh, but he says there's only one thing that'll be missing. A woman. Wow, you'd have to think about that, wouldn't you?
I guess you would, huh?
Well, it'd take me about a millisecond to just say, "Well, stick your castle. I'm gonna give me the babe," because you can have all the wealth in the world,
Yeah.
but if you don't have sex, and you don't have that marvelous enjoyment of male and female, that beautiful dance we do together and have done since our creation, which is just a fabulous dance, then you're missing everything. And you know, I don't care if it's you know, you might be homosexual. Well, that's okay too. I don't give a damn about that either. You know, it's still a physical exchange of love. And you know, in my particular case, I happen to like women, but I don't hold it against anybody who happen to like men. But I am not available, okay? Which is my own sort of Puritan idea. Not boastful.
Well, there you go. We got politics, sex, philosophy. What else? What did we miss?
We missed my favorite saying: "Go for it, grab it, take it, run into the bushes with it. It's all yours.
all
The world
yours.
is ours. It's meant to be enjoyed, and enjoy it. Take every damn thing you can out of it every single day. Put the day to bed when you go to bed, and take the last drop of joy out of it. That's our job on the planet, to enjoy ourselves."
It's been a pleasure, Colin.
Thanks, mate. My goodness. Will's my boy.